Today is September the 30th, 2013. My name is Tanya Finchum, along with Alex Bishop, and we're in Midwest City, Oklahoma today to speak with Ethel Norris, who is 100, recently turned 100.
Yes.
And this is part of our Oklahoma 100-Year Life project, and we're happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Let's start with having you tell us when and where you were born.
8/24/13, and just exactly where I was born, it was close to Paris, Texas.
On a farm?
I'm not too sure. Now, my mother's always said that my sister, that's just younger than and I, was born in Paris, but I never asked her where I was born. But my memory goes back to Paris, Texas. A few of them, where my memory starts.
Sure. Is that where you went to school?
No. This is when I was just a little thing, I guess, like 3. I remembered my brother telling us that we were going to move. And we were living in Paris, Texas at that time. So we moved to Powderly, Texas.
And when did you come to Oklahoma?
1923.
Oh, quite a while ago. 80, 90 years. Why did you move here, Oklahoma?
Well, my dad, for years in my life, he would live at one place, I'm guessing, about 2 years. Then he'd want to move some other place. But each place he moved to was a farm. And most places, I guess all except maybe one, he would find a place that I guess the homesteaders had maybe passed away, and the children had no need for the home place at that time, so they rented it out. And so my dad somehow, in thinking back, well, he always found good places for us to move to. They were, past their heyday, let's say. But for us, they were fine. The homes, and we'd have plenty of land to work, which I had brothers and all. And back then, the parents that we knew anything about and had big families, they kept their boys busy so they didn't get into trouble. Farm work and help make a living. So we'd have a pretty fair orchard. The trees were still bearing fruit. So we, even though we were just renters, we had all the food we could eat. My mother loved gardening. And then we had the fruit, and then we had plenty of exercise. We were out there. We were out there with the older brothers and all working.
Did you have particular chores?
Did a what?
Did you have certain chores?
Yes.
What were yours? What were a few of yours?
Well, and now my sister and I were more the same age, so the child that was up ahead of me, there's one child born and just lived a few days, so that made a further distance that he was much older. But my sister and I were near the same age, so we kind of picked what chores kids of a certain age did. Well, I really think my sister thought that dishwashing was a rougher job, so she let Ethel have the easier job. Well, I like making beds and cleaning the house. She's always picked, seemed like if there's something, two jobs going on, she would just take the hardest one somehow. And if she didn't, I would talk her into it. Working, if there's too much cotton on my rows, look too like it. Boy, I'm going to have a time getting all that picked. I'd say, maybe you want to trade rows with me, and she would. And then when she could get way ahead of me, she would pick my row of cotton up with hers, piling my cotton right there in the middle of the row. So when I came along, I'd get my cotton, whether I had to pick it or not. But even today, she would like to just be good to me. Anyway, well, where am I now? Well, chores. So that's about the way the chores went. In the house. We had more chores outdoors, field work. We were out there, whether we did much work when we got out there or not, my dad saw that we were out there. And I guess he was assuming we was busy, but we enjoyed ourselves out there in the field. Taking our lunches many times and taking books. After school's out, we'd carry some of our books and looking at those, and we'd make a game of one go to one end of the row and the other start at the other. And when we meet, we'd have to say a verse or something. Growing up, you wouldn't think two kids out in the field cutting grass or picking cotton would have any fun, but we did. We managed. I bet we had a happier life than kids in towns crowded up, even more so than this court out here. If they get outside their little lawn, they're in someone else's yard or something. We had the fields in creeks and all to explore, and meadows. So let me get off of that. Happy childhood.
Sure. And you had brothers and sisters. So how many older than you?
I'm the seventh down the line.
Okay. Did any of your brothers have to go to World War I?
No.
Or II, I guess, in World War II either.
No.
So got lucky there.
Yeah.
Was religion an important part?
Well, not formal religion. Now, our parents taught right and wrong, but we usually lived in a community that only had a school and not a church. And in some places, I don't even remember seeing church house, but in the summertime, there'd always be some preacher that would come and hold a revival during summertime, like 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So we'd always attend that. But other than, now my dad didn't believe in working Sundays. I think it would, one time I hurt his feelings, but I had this was well years later. I came home and the front yard was getting robbed. Well, he would turn the milk cows in the yard to eat the grass. Well, when I could, I'd mow. And he says, Ethel, this is Sunday. And I says, and I was smart aleck. Only time I ever smart alecked. Alex, to my dad, I says, okay, Papa, you just be happy that that's all you can find wrong. And I've thought of that so many times. My dad didn't have another word to say. But in those days, when after field work was done, like a few short months during the summer, we'd find jobs. And jobs were hard to find those days for girls, I guess. Boys maybe easier. But anyway, but there were times that maybe I had a job that only got Sundays off, so that's why I was mowing on Sunday. Well, you know, what else?
What was the name of your elementary school? Or the name of the school where you went?
Well, they were, as each 2 years, my dad had moved to new ones.
So different.
Well, let's see. When I first started school, I don't remember the name of the school. I don't think I went much. I don't think the school, checked about that much. But down at when we moved to Ladonia, Texas, and it was farmland, and I mean cotton. And we went to one school that I think was called Pecan School. And it was real black land, and we didn't have roads like we do now, and it was something to... and usually schools are about a 2-mile distance from home. And but I don't remember ever missing a day, being sick or too rainy or what, or cold. And then, but when we moved to Hugo, we moved to 2 different places. This is when we lived down there, each about 5 miles apart, but we went to the same school. So from, I guess I was in the 3rd grade until through the 8th, we went to the one school. And usually they were just one in my class. Sometimes there's 2 or 3, but very, very seldom. Schools weren't crowded at those. Not that it made it easier for me to learn, but anyway, we didn't have too many in school.
Well, what would you take for your lunch during school?
Oh, maybe fried dry apple pie, or something like that, and just fried hog meat or some cut. We didn't. How much of a variety?
How long did you live in Hugo?
Well, we moved there in 23, and well, I don't remember the year I came up here to work in, well, first from there, Denison, Texas, to the egg plant. Hugo didn't have many people, many jobs. And we lived at the edge of town. So after moving to Hugo, we stayed there from 23 till I was, well, when I started school in fall that I was in the 8th grade. Somehow they made a rule. I never questioned it or wondered why, but it was, I thought, unusual at that time. They says, now the 8th grade, if they pass a test, they will not have to continue in school all year. They will be graduated from the 8th grade. Well, we took the 8th grade test, the two of us, and passed it. So I started high school in January 29, and into high school at Hugo, which is about 5 miles from our place. But at that time we lived on the highway. So the winter of 49 was a cold, cold time, and my brother drove that old cold Ford car without a heater and all to school. Okay, but I walked home, but I walked home to my new home. Not out there 5 miles on the highway, because my dad had bought a place in Hugo, just outside the city limit, a 10-acre place. And so I can remember walking home in the still ice on the sidewalks, and we had a pretty steep hill. And but that hill, as the years went by, didn't seem very steep as it did that afternoon. Anyway, so we lived there until I went to Denison and worked at an egg plant. And then after that, by that time, my brothers and others had grown up and lived elsewhere. I have to think about what my train of thought was.
Well, the eggplant, what did you have to do there?
I wish I could draw a picture, but I don't have the words to draw a picture of it. Long tables. Oh, this is a long building. And so there's long tables, and you worked on this, a whole bunch on this side, lining up, and a whole bunch on that side. Within the center, in front of you, a round hole in a barrel sitting under that. And they set a big 5-gallon bucket of eggs down there beside of you. And in front of you, there's a little tray built up with a blade across the top, and you pick these eggs, crack, crack, and you have to shake good before you dump the shells over in the trash barrel, they were a hole made for them. And so, well, that was my first job away from home, other than maybe working for someone and keeping your children while they worked. And So I felt grown by living away from home and living in an apartment, which was just always one room, but in efficiency at that. And so a neighbor girl thought I was, she says she wants to come and work with me. So here she comes. And so she worked at the Kraft cheese plant. I never did see her place of work, but she would walk to it, and she had quite a little distance to walk. I found an apartment just kind of across the street from the egg plant, so I didn't have all that walk, but she seemed to enjoy it and like to work. Okay, so, well, then I did have a brother that was in the service, not during the wartime, but when he got to, well, I think my mother had to sign for him to be in there, joined the Army. But he was in the Army, I don't know how many years he went in for it, but when he had to re-enlist, in taking a chest x-ray, they found that he had TB. And so he was in the hospital some, but then checked himself out, and the doctor at the home didn't find anything wrong with his lungs, or so he says. So he gets married and comes to Denison to work in the egg plant, he and his wife. And then in, I guess it's just about a year's time, they had a son. But meanwhile, my brother, working at the egg plant, also got a part-time job. They was building Denison Dam at that time. So he was driving trucks with, I don't know, hauling sand, I guess, or hauling dirt, whatever they do with trucks. And so he got sick, and so he passed away when his son was just about 6 months of age. And, well, now where can I go from there? Okay, so after working at the egg plant, one of my girlfriends, acquaintance for years and years, ever since we'd been in Hugo almost, she says, how about civil service examination? And well, the one that was in charge of civil service examination office was a neighbor of mine, of ours. So Florence and I decided to take civil service examination without, I didn't seriously think about, further than just taking it, what it added up to. Well, so we passed it. We got a notice, or Mr. Bell told us about it, and that we were, then had an appointment to come to the employment office here in the city.
Hello? President Obama has asked for something.
And so Florence says, well, yeah, I guess she was more serious about it than I was. She said, yeah, we can take the bus to Norman and spend a night with, she had a brother and his family lived in Norman. And then the next day, we can just get the interurban or something and come on to up here to the employment office. We had to first apply or sign in at the employment office here in the city. And so we did. Well, I'm taking up so much time.
No, that's good. You're good. Go ahead.
You're doing great. Keep going.
Keep going.
Well, I can cut this short. I don't have to go into all this detail.
So you got to the city.
But I'm just getting to the good part.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we want.
Oh, I'm getting where I want to talk all the time.
Go.
That's what we're here for. That's why we're here. Well, let me see if I can go on. Okay. So we find ourselves up here at the employment office. And so we're sitting in there, and there was a lady sitting in there, and so we sat down by her, and so she kind of starts talking. She says, are you girls here signing up for work or something like that, maybe? And we says, yes, we're to work at Tinkerfield. So we mentioned where we were from and that we spent the night last night with her brother's family. And so in the talking, she says, well, she has a son in there being interviewed right now. And says, I have 2 children, that one and his sister, which they're twins. Says, says my daughter got a job at Bell Telephone Office before she graduated. So when she graduated from high school, she had a job already. But my son, he just now reporting in there for work at Tinkerfield. And she sits there a while and she says, where are you girls going to stay tonight? We says, well, we'll probably go back to Norman. And I had never thought of, I'm glad Florence is, she was more mature than I was at that time, for sure. I guess she'd worked through it all after we, in taking the civil service exam, knew how to go about it all. She says, well, Florence says, I guess we'll go back to my brother's because we haven't looked for any place here. We wouldn't have known where to look. Well, anyway, so she says after a while, she says, you know, I have an extra bedroom that we never use. Would you girls like to rent it and have kitchen privilege? It says, I'm not far, just 2 blocks down to the bus station that you will catch to come to Oklahoma City to catch the bus going out to Tinkerfield. Well, she seemed nice and all. And we just hadn't met many people that wasn't nice. We just didn't know the other side of life. So we says, well, yes, we'll do that. So we did. Okay, we lived with her. I never saw the girl. I guess she didn't have to get up as early as we did. And anyway, somehow, but I've lost my train of thought. We lived there about, I don't know whether it was a week or 2 weeks. But everything was working out fine, it seems. And then Florence was assigned to the parachute department of work because when she fell one time, and back then
people from lack of money or this and that just did without doctors almost. We didn't know much about doctors for sure. We were never sick. But anyway, when her dad or whoever fixed her forearm back in a slant, somehow got it to where it didn't straighten up. Later, she continued to have to hold her arm built about like that, stationary. And so parachute department was, after she was interviewed at Tinker Field, that was where she belonged, because she could sew, she could hold material or do everything, and work machinery with that kind of handicap she had. Okay, she had a man and a woman that was a boss was out there. And so the lady gets acquainted with Florence and where she lives and where we were staying. She says, well, she lived in that new housing place just across 29th from Tinkerfield. And my husband and I was kind of having a problem, wondering, we have 2 children, and there's going to be a change in our work and our hours to where one or the other will not be home with the kids a few hours each day. Would you like to come and work with us? Live with us? Room and board? Well, that sounded good and closer. And there we wasn't, I don't know what this lady was charging for a room in kitchen privilege. I don't remember any part about that now. But we thought, well, yeah, we'll have our whole salary. Okay, we did that. We lived just in our suitcases, so we packed our suitcases. And Florence was not a person that laughed or did things, but some of the things we'd do and happen to us, we'd get to laughing about it. And she got to where she could just giggle and laugh and, like when we were to ourselves about what happened. Like, we've gotten away from one good home, and here we're getting a chance into another, plus we don't have any expenses. Well, so that goes on until the husband and wife works somehow. Maybe he had to go on a training period or something or something, I don't know. But it became back like it was, where they could, of course, each, having different shifts, they didn't see much of each other maybe, but it worked out for their 2 little kids, about 5 and 6 or something was their age. Well, so we were, in about that time, Florence's other boss in her department says, why don't you come out and live? We have rented the Maryland apartments there on Broadway, and it says we live in the basement, but my wife takes care of renting to people upstairs. Says, we have apartments to rent every now and then. So Florence and I thought, apartment of our own and all. Okay, so we packed our suitcases up because we would have had to move anyway. These people just didn't have that much space in a little house. In some of those places there on the bay, across from Tinkerfield, just little houses. But anyway, so we moved to Maryland Apartments,
Boy, thought we were uptown at that time. And from Hugo, we couldn't even, we're living there, we couldn't even hire a taxi. Wouldn't dream about spending money on a taxi. And I guess it was all a mile and a half to downtown Hugo. Well, and nothing, well, up here with streetcars, old lands, we seemed like we were everything. And every time we turn around, someone was nice to us and helpful. And so we lived in this apartment until she had an older sister that got married, and her husband lived in Ballsville. That's 30 miles, let's say, from Hugo. Anyway, so that was going to leave their mother without anyone. So Florence quit Tinkerfield to go back to stay with her mother. And so now let me see what happened to me around that time. Okay, we had, there's one family of 3 girls and a younger brother that I don't know when their mother passed away. I think it was years before. But their dad was just a drunkard, so he was sitting in the middle of the road one time and the car run over him, so it was just the 3 sisters and the brother. Well, they worked at the, I haven't even mentioned pecan plant. Okay, the pecan, now way back years earlier, they had a pecan plant that set up in Hugo, and we picked pecans, I don't know, a couple of years or so, and inside of a building, and then it got so we could carry big loads of pecans home and pick them out and carry the nuts, meat, back to the plant. Well, anyway, I missed out on that part. Well, no. So these girls, I got acquainted with them during that period of my life, earlier there in Hugo. So we were writing letters. So they decided to come up here. Would it be all right if they came up? Okay, they stayed with us until they had jobs and rented them apartment. Okay, now what happened to me after that?
What did you do? What was your job at Tinker?
Machine lathes, big machinery. I mean, big. And why they put me on that, I don't know. But anyway, I guess I was only a woman. A lot of the machine, they'd be in kind of sections in a big building. And usually there'd be a woman working in each one with a bunch of men. Okay, I guess I got the most simplest job, more than likely. Anyway, how to use a micrometer and gauge threads on the bolt, whatever they needed to repair some airplane that came in that was damaged during the war, or if it was metal, it would it might come to our department, whether it was in our section or not. Anyway, there's so many sections. Anyway, a bolt of metal, stainless steel, and you turn the machine on and having to set it just where, make threads, and then the bolt that goes on that, well, that type of work.
anyway, so at first it was kind of frightening. I thought, oh, I don't want to know anything right now. Just tell me what to punch to turn the machine off. I thought, oh, I'll mess up and I sure want to get that machine stopped. Well, but anyway, I was satisfactory, I guess, in there. But then my mother got sick, so she didn't have wasn't anyone left at home but my mother and dad. And they were getting on up in age after having all those children, and hear me way past grown. They weren't young. So I went down and stayed with her until she got to feeling all right. And that happened a number of times after this at different jobs I'd work on. I'd quit to go down and stay with my mother and dad while they were having problems. Overall, they were real healthy, but there were times that they needed someone around. Okay, so... So when I quit Tinkerfield, I didn't know enough to that I could ask for a leave or something like that and come back to work. I thought if I just quit, that would be it. Okay, so I quit. Then aunt of this Florence that I first came to Tinkerfield with, she had moved to Oklahoma City from Lawton or somewhere. Her two sons was in the service, and so she was tired of living down there, I guess, wanted to move to the city. So she rented a big house over close to University Hospital. And said she had rooms for rent. So, so I rented that from her for a while. And after getting acquainted and renting from her, she became a lifetime friend and eventually married a neighbor of mine. This is way later in years, that lived across the street. So I asked her if she'd be interested in meeting my neighbor man. Well, but that comes on further. I'll talk all the evening.
So you played matchmaker. So you were playing matchmaker.
Yeah. Yeah. She moved out there, and then his house was a little thing, and so somehow or another, I guess she had managed to have a little extra money, and so her two sons always looked out for Mama. Seemed like when, one son moved out there. I've skipped a part of us, what happened to us before I got moved out in that area. Oh dear. It takes a time to go over your life minute by minute, discussing little minor things.
Well, at what point did you get married?
Well, I haven't gotten to that part. Well, let me skip this that I was going on about. This Florence's aunt, renting a big old-timey house like so many years ago. People built, if they were able, for big living rooms, dining rooms, and kitchen, and 3 bedrooms or so on the other side. Well, anyway, so from where did I go from living with her?
Well, you had quit too.
Well, maybe this was a time that, well, I don't know. One time my dad was putting fruit up on the house to dry for winter use. We'd put it on the roof of the house. He fell off the house and broke his 2 ankles. No, heels, bruised him so that he couldn't walk, so he was off for work for a while. It may have been that time that I left this place and went down to Hugo and spent some time. Okay, while I was down there, this lady that I had, Florence's aunt, Fanny, I'll call her now, as she became known, she wrote and says, Ethel, I'll tell you what I'm doing now. She had been years before this over at the that big Christian church, if you know Oklahoma City and Broadway and Maryland Hotel. There's a big Christian church there in the same block of that Maryland Hotel. Well, she had cooked at different big churches for Wednesday nights or any time they had suppers. So that's what she kind of work she did. She says, what I'm doing now, I'm working down at the Cerebral Palsy Institute down at Norman. And if you, when you can get back to work, come and live with me. And I'll just get on one street just right close to me and breeze on down, Sunny Lane, I guess, to Norman. So I go back and forth to Norman, to the Cerebral Palsy Institute, and cook down there now. And so when I was able to leave my mother and dad alone again, I come up and stayed with her a while. And then later, there's a lady, and I wish I could remember their names, but I don't, that had a husband that was a notary republic, if I'm saying it right. That was his job, but he had lost his mind. He was just, no mind, no, he was just either going to bed or she'd get him and set it up and going to the kitchen to eat. That's all he did. No conversation, no disruptive attitude or anything. But she had a mother, I don't mean to say but, she also had a mother living with her that was, I think she was 93 at that time, but she was up and kind of walking and doing for herself, moving around. She didn't have to have help. But her daughter, of course, did the cooking. Okay, so she says, would you like to come and live with me, to just kind of be company and just do a few things that she wasn't able to do. So here I moved from Fanny's place, lived with her, down into Norman, and caught a bus out to the Cerebral Palsy Institute. Okay, that went on, I don't know, maybe over a year. And that place went out of business, like a funds. Okay, so here I'd, let me see, I guess I came to the city and with Fanny then when I don't remember getting an apartment or anything. Anyway, after that, I was, of course, Fanny was looking for work too then, and I was too. So, okay, now I can't keep up with Ethel. Okay, yeah, I thought, and I've skipped another part of my life, and how that came in, and I don't. Well, there's a couple of things. And I worked at. I guess when I came back from Tinkerfield, maybe I didn't dream about going back to reapply. I just thought that was over with. So I got a job as a nurse aide at Baptist Hospital. And I'd never been around Catholics or anything, but I just loved them all. And one sister, I thought, oh, she's just my buddy, because everywhere I went, seemed like I'd turn around, there she was. But I didn't think she's just checking on my work. She's a person that does around and inspects the rooms, in the bed, that all the springs had been washed, and they had such a fast turnover. Oh dear. And I worked in the maternity ward. And so happened the nurses with their bedpans of patients, that was an experience. And things have changed so. Oh, people wouldn't believe some of the things they. Anyway, so then from a Baptist hospital, okay, I'm back. I'm going to jump way ahead. That was a job that I didn't mention. Maybe sometimes when I'd gone home and come back, what I did. Anyway, so here I thought, well, I'll call Baptist Hospital St. Anthony's. I'm saying, I'm not hearing what I'm saying. I'll call St. Anthony's to see if they need any help. Okay, it's like noontime, and whoever answered the phone out there says, well, the sister that takes care of that is on her lunch period now. If you'll call back soon, she'll let you can talk to her. Okay, meanwhile, I thought, well, that was the time that Fanny was still living in that house that she had rented just on 8th Street, right back of the hospital. I thought, well, why not call University Hospital? So I did. And so I told them who I was and what I had been doing in that. The place had closed from lack of funds. And if they had a job, and the person that answers, you are already our employee, they tell me. So cerebral palsy belonged to University Hospital some way. We're considered employees even though we're in a separate place. Okay, I says, well, I'm just off of that job, and I need to visit my folks. So if I could wait until I think it's about a week later, I said, and come to work. Let me take a kind of a vacation time or period to take care of my visits. They says, all right. So after that, I came back, so I didn't have to go through the rigmarole of employment. They had the records, I guess, of me enrolling down there. And so, well, so I started there. I don't remember what the year was. I can't remember. And I think all the records that has any dates, really years, is in the safety deposit box in the bank. So I'll start there, get acquainted with Clara May's dad, and from here on, it will take another day or two to tell all my details if I go from minute to minute. So eventually, when I retired, my 25 years at University Hospital, and the 2 years that I got credit for working at the cerebral palsy hospital, I retired with 27 years of hospital work. And but meanwhile, from the year one of working there until retirement, and then later, y'all know you have things to do. I'm sure you're
doing fine.
Bored and all.
So when did you get married? When?
Clara May, what was?
Probably around 1950.
I can't hear you.
Probably around 1949 or 50.
1949 or 50?
49, I think. The September of 40.
I married Bill in
49.
51. That was about a year after you married Dad.
Yeah, and
so you were married later. You married later in life.
So you were older when you got married.
Yes.
Than average people.
Yeah. I think I was 38.
Yeah.
Well, so now life is just beginning to another phase of it.
So you got married in 49.
Yes.
Did you have children?
No.
No.
I ended up with this one. She was 15 when her dad and I got married, but her mother had it annulled. She went to California and met a guy, and they married, and she, how many years you and Bill had together?
52.
How many?
52.
52. So, and during their, he was a Navy guy, and they lived elsewhere, but on their vacation they'd come back to see us and their mother, and meanwhile had 4 children, and eventually Bill retired from the Navy. Spent his time in the Navy, I guess you say retired. And after that, he put in, he was interviewed at Midwest City Hospital as electrician work. And so he worked there until he retired from there. And then I lived about 10 years or so, and had Parkinson's disease, and that's what he passed away from. Well,
So how long were you married then?
how long?
How long were you married before your husband passed away?
If I can remember, 52 years.
Okay.
Or was it 50? Claire,
I don't remember.
dates? Maybe.
You'll find out.
Okay.
That's good enough. That's good enough. So what was your job at the hospital?
Well, I ended up as an LPN.
Okay.
So when I got a job at University Hospital, when I came back from my little visit between jobs, I was sent to the polio ward. And that was a bad season that summer that I worked there. They didn't have air conditioning, and I'll tell you, the little old patients, well, there's some adults, but so many little ones, we'd have to hot pack them. And that's, anyway, that's something else to describe. So after polio season, like late fall, they closed the ward, polio ward, up there. There's so many things I can't get them straightened up. I guess some before the others. Well, after we were married, well, I think it was November. We were married in September. My husband, reading the paper, he says, well, here's a place for sale. And somewhere around here, I have that little old newspaper item, about 3 lines and about that long, that we cut out. Okay, it's something about a place for sale, $50 a month with the idea of owning the place. Okay, so we were living just across the alley. I'm skipping over so many things to make it come out smooth. Farrell had an apartment there when we were married. I had one in the garage apartment behind a person's house just next to his. But anyway, so that's where he was living when we married. I was living in another apartment.
Well, how did you
I
meet?
wish you could read my brain picture. And
I'd like to scan
and
her
while I
brain.
wasn't still living next to him, just prior to marriage, lands, there's so much.
How did you two meet eventually? You and your husband.
Okay. I usually had a day job. I mean, 7 until 3:30. But there for a period of time, I was working night shift. 11 until, whatever,
7.
time 7. Where did I get off on that?
How you met?
Well, anyway, oh dear. Okay, how we met? I was working those night hours. Okay, so here come a break time in the middle of the night. We went to one little old room set aside, and they brought food from the kitchen, whatever was left from that day's meal. They would package that up and bring it up there. So sometimes it was quite good. Sometimes just like bread and butter or jam or just little. Okay, so we met in there, and that's where I met him eating. Well, he was a security guard at that time. I guess that was his first job after your mom and he was getting a divorce after that. And you came up here to stay with Farrell and all. Okay, so that's how we met at the midnight snack.
I'm kind of curious because we don't find too many centenarians like you that was a step parent. What was it like being a parent, like a step parent?
Well, I thought, oh, then when we were married, Clara May went on back to Chickasha or wherever, and with her mama. Okay, so Clara May would come up to us and spend time. Well, I thought, well, I don't know hardly how to treat a stepdaughter. I thought, oh, I'll just treat her like she was some other kid. And so I felt that she treated me like she was just, that I wasn't that old, but just some, like a girlfriend. She said, Ethel, and back there, those, for years, a few anyway, I'd have to work just, well, one day a week. Then it came available for us to get a day and a half a week. Well, so it was kind of mixed up. And Sundays only came on blue moon days or something. Anyway, so Clara May, let's say she come up to spend the night, and the next day she says, Ethel, what are we going to do today? Like looking for something fun. And I thought, well, if it was me, I'd do washing, clean houses, home chores. And I said, well, let's see. Well, I don't know who thought of that. Anyway, I haven't even mentioned where we're living now. Okay, that little ad in the paper about that rent house. So I'll bring it down to closer to where we are now. What are we doing today, Ethel? Okay, so just about a little before that time, Farrell got acquainted with a nice family and a nice man, and then he brought his wife to see us, and she was real nice. Well, it seemed like they were doing well, and they had a little one-seated coupe, and so the four of us get in the one-seated coupe, go out to Overholster and fish, evenings. And so, okay, this guy says, would you guys be interested in buying our little car? Well, Lance, we hadn't dreamed of that either. Well, we decided to buy it. And he was buying a bigger, larger car. Well, okay, so now, so he sees this lad. So when it come time that our hours kind of meshed, we went out there, right over here, down 23rd, or not to Air Depot, but just this side of Air, 2 blocks this side of Air Depot on 23rd.
To Boyd.
told us to turn off Boyd Street, 23rd down to Boyd Street, and down a block, in which house, southwest corner of the intersection was where the house was. So we come out and saw the place. There wasn't anyone at home at that time. We looked around, and I says, "Oh, my dad would like to have something like this." It's, thinking about the black land that we lived at Adonia during part of my talking about cotton and all. Oh, I don't know, 35 bales of cotton a year. We did that the couple of years we lived there. Well, I thought, oh, my dad would sure like this black land because we knew how rich. I knew how rich it was from living down there. That it was just like gold. Okay, so we go on back, and then I guess we make an appointment for sometimes when the man and his wife was home, and came out another time, and looked at it and inside, and we said, we'll buy. Well, we thought $50 a month, that's about like rent. Maybe we could have found an apartment that was, 35 or so. But with the idea of that money going in on ownership of the home. And I says, and it was an acre of ground, a 2-room house, huge rooms. And so we buy it, we move out. I think it's Christmas Eve we moved out here, which is just down over here just a little ways. By the Baptist church that's up there on 23rd Street. Anyway, so we moved there. Okay, and come spring, he had it all deep plowed, big old deep plowed, and they had their kitchen full of big old baskets and tubs of half green and green tomatoes that they had raised. We didn't see where all the land where they'd grown because he had plowed it up deep. But we saw worlds of tomatoes. And so I knew before I saw the tomatoes how rich this dirt out here was. So we moved out there. I think it was Christmas Eve. Anyway, so at the time Clara May comes up to visit with us and saying, "Ethel, what do we do today?" Like, what fun or what, not not my chore day. And so, we thought of and how, I don't know where we come up, just down a block or 2 blocks. On Air Depot. Air Depot ends at 23rd. Okay, the street continues on down, but just over a little old creek and just woodsy area. So we went down there and explored the woods and all. Clara May is pretty much of an outdoor person. As growing up, she had a similar living situation, outdoors and things. So we ended up living at that place 23 years. Meanwhile, we added on to the house. We planted fruit trees. We got a rototiller and worked that land because my husband had the same type of background living that I had, very similar. And so we planted garden and all. And come summer, we got a canner, and we just had, okay, as the years went by, 23 of them, it changed a lot. Well, even earlier, we had a little old hen house thing on the property that was all other than the house. We bought chickens. So during those years, we were all those years we worked out in our acre of ground, and had chickens, geese, and all kind of fowls. Well, no, we never did have turkeys, but anyway, and they just run wild, wasn't any, just all over the acre of ground.
Well, I want to know if you. I want to know if you fast forward a little bit. What I want to know is what's your secret to living a long life?
I don't have any. I guess it's inheritance because my mother and dad was hearty, healthy people. And I don't know, just.
And what's a typical day? What's a typical day like for you?
Then?
Today. What time do you get up, and what do you do, and when do you go to bed?
Right now?
Uh-huh.
Oh, well, different times, but here just of late I've been going to bed about 9:30. If I don't get a hold of Clara May, some of her good books, and stay up till many hours later. But here this summer I haven't had. I've been so busy I haven't had time to read. So much has been going on, and
what keeps you busy?
Just everything that needs to be done in the house and outdoors.
Do you still mow your own yard?
Well, I did until after the flood. I mowed it all, the yard, and I count the alley that joins my strip of ground. But my neighbor over here, he has asked for mowing jobs around a lot of the people, and he's always been over quite often wanting to borrow a 20. And so I thought, well, he really needs a work. They both smoked, he and his wife, and they have a dear little old boy. He's precious little old guy. Anyway, so, and two, I'm so sun sensitive that I wear two hats to make keep from the sun, but I really enjoy. I feel good. I feel better when I do some hard work that pulls my muscles and all. So here of late, I've let him do the mowing. He does a good job. Detailed work, so I think, well, I can find something else to do.
Do you usually do outdoor work when you can? Are you outside a lot?
Yeah,
doing outdoor work.
There's still plenty yard work out there, flower beds and things. And just recently, I've had a lot of extra work. Hard things done that need to be done.
My
painting
dad
in
had a
the
saying-
cellar and just jobs after jobs.
My dad had a saying that when she passed on, they'd have to bury her face down or she'd dig her way out.
Now you said the floods. Were you in the May 20th tornadoes? The 2 weeks?
Did what now? I didn't
The
quite hear it.
recent tornadoes back in May? Were you involved in any of that? Or were you?
No, it didn't. We've never had a storm, a strong wind that damaged anything out here. We've had few high water deals over the year, but the water, even this time, and I guess this is worse after this tornado down there in Moore and all the extra rain everywhere seems like, around. It didn't get up to my back, up under my back tire wheels out there under the driveway. So I could have stayed here all that time, but they wouldn't let you. You couldn't even get a car out from here. It would drown the motor as it's lower down there as you drive into the courts. They wouldn't let people take the car or try to take the cars out because some of them was already stalled.
Did you ever think you'd live to 100?
No.
No.
Well, after my husband passed away, he was 92, I thought, well, I guess I'll probably live 4 or 5 years at the most. And here it's, well, the 28th, was that yesterday? Was my wedding anniversary. And I thought, it's been 13 years in November when he passed away. It'll be 16 years in November. It'll be 13 years in November that he's been gone. And well,
do you have a motto or a philosophy you live by?
do I what?
Have a philosophy or some type of motto that you live by?
No, I don't think so. Never realized.
Well, how did you celebrate your birthday?
Well, the celebration really was down at Antlers, Oklahoma, and nieces and nephews from Virginia and all over Texas and from Elk City and all met down there. And at the home of not my oldest brother. My oldest brother passed away when he was 18 during the First World War. It was a bad health time at that time, and that's when he passed away. But my next brother, he lived, I'm not too sure, 92 or 3, and he had seemed like so many of the families had 9 children. So that ended up with a lot of them. Time they got married and having kids, I had nieces and nephews galore. And but the thing is that in the summer we go down there when different ones can make it from far off. They'll one of my my oldest brother that lived,
well, they lived in West Texas and all but they moved back to Oklahoma, down in that area. And the oldest daughter married a neighbor boy, and they built a home there on the highway between Antlers and Hugo. And then as their 9 children married and built homes all around there, one became a pretty good carpenter and built different homes around. When my niece and her husband eventually passed away, they left that house, the kids did, just empty. It's never been bothered. But when they have visitors from a lot of places and big meals, they come there and have that as their place. So that's where we went for my main birthday. It was after the years, but I said, had several occasions here, anyway. There was something I was going to say and forgot it. Well, and a lot of this, as nieces, children, having children and living around in the neighborhood of Antlers and around, ones that lives fairly close around here, goes to a little church down on the highway about 3 or 4 miles, and all the family comes back here after church to have just the evening, each bringing a dish or so, and that's where they all meet rather than go into individual houses. And that's been going on. About how many years has Margie passed away?
I don't
Good
know.
many years. And they just left that house empty there. And for their place of meeting.
Did any of them have anything to do with the circus?
No. But some of my nieces and nephews, I think it's just the ones that lives around Elk City. We all went down there and spent several nights down there. And they went out, or we all did, to the cemetery at Hugo, where all my folks are buried. And then to this Barney Bailey part of their part of the cemetery down there, and they all enjoyed that. Then we had another cemetery that the old-timey ours, like my granddad and a lot of the aunts and all, is buried fairly close to Raptan, Oklahoma. So, well, let me see if I can't high point something and let you folks go on. I guess I'll talk the rest of the evening.
What I want to
my
know,
interesting life.
what I want to know is when history is written, what do you want it to say about you? You may want to repeat.
What do I want to say about me?
What do you want? In other words, what do you want to be remembered for? What type of person do you want people to say you were?
She's a sweet lady.
Oh, she was a very nice person. I guess that's all. I don't know.
That's a tough question.
It is.
really
Let me
is.
see
It
if
really
there's
is.
some, if I can skip something or high point something and let y'all go.
Might be interesting to read her notes.
So what type of books do you like?
Books.
Yeah, what do you like to
Oh,
read?
just interesting romance. I'm not. I like to read stories of people that's and how their life was.
Mm-hmm.
And some of these authors can make the has a word power to seem like makes the people so real. You can just seem like
What's the
okay. Now I haven't even mentioned about living here. So 23 years down there. I got tired of writing all the things down, and then I kind of high pointed some things here. Okay, so after 23 years at this 2-room acre place, maybe 2 blocks from here, we ended up here. Why? Well, there's a Tinkerfield young guy that would come by the house, drive by, and he'd say, hey, are you interested in selling this place or this and that? He'd come by every now and then. And so this place, this mobile home came on sale, and we had been inside and knew the people because they went to the church. I haven't even mentioned church, and up here all those after our years kind of got settled, we started going to the church that's up here right now, and so I started women's Bible school class. Well, after a few years, as we tried to get new members and all coming in, and they'd have children, and no one was too interested in a nursery. And I guess the women having grandchildren and all, raise their own and then having their grandchildren, they would rather have a Sunday quiet with other women in Sunday school. So I thought, well, okay, 1 year of my work at the University Hospital, I worked 4 years in the toddler age ward, and I thought, well, I think I will just volunteer to work in the nursery. So I got started working in there and worked there for the kids. Here they're growing and having kids. Laughing about, oh yeah, I remember Miss Norris when they were, kids, and here they're grown and all. Well, now that's not bringing me on down to this place here. Okay, yes, it does do, if I can keep my thoughts right. So this church up here, after years, there's as so many churches do now, about all you see in the churches I've visited since this one had to close, they're mainly just being elderly people. Not up having a bunch of 3 or 4 kids or young teenagers or 20 or 30, not any of that. Okay, I don't know how about you folks, but anyway, I've lost my train of thought now again. Okay, so that church, from lack of attendance, lack of funds, finally, the preacher just had to say, we're just going to have to close. So got the whole Baptist Association, they have to go through a rigmarole when a church closes and all. So finally got all of that behind us. And this, in the process, this preacher was invited to a big church way on north, Britain, over on Britain Road, invited to a huge church there. Okay, so when they went to that, I told the wife, I said, Sissy, I'm not moving to that church. It's just so far away, and at this time, by this time, I'd gotten where I was hard of hearing, and so it's hard to talk to someone with, I'd try 2 different pair of hearing aids and not doing much better. I says, I'll just find some church around here. Well, Clara May took me to several she thought I like a small church where I can get to know people and all. Anyway, I started going to those 2 churches over here, one in the mall where Dillard's used to be. They have the whole Dillard section of the mall over there. One of these churches that plays a lot of music and such. Well, I went a few times, and the parking lot would just be crowded with cars. And then I'd see mom and daddies, like 30 years of age, come in holding little sissies and brother, the little kids' hands, having then all age, and getting inside and looking at the people. All of them was concentrating their attention was so on what was being said and done. They wasn't talking to each other or having their phone. And so it was an encouragement to me. I thought, well, the guys coming back from fighting for us, when they see that type of audience, okay, maybe they will feel more like it was worthwhile that people over here is trying to learn to do the best they can and make life better. And it was encouragement. So I go over there. I haven't been going this summer because the car gets so hot, and I come in, get in the car, and it's like holding my face in the oven for, So, well, let me see if, okay, so this, okay. Y'all never get to go home if I don't shut up. So this place is, and we've lived here 33 years this year in October of this year. Oh, this month. Okay, we bought it in this month, 33 years. Okay, so we knew the people living here because they went to our church. They were Tinkerfield employees. Well, eventually he retired, and his wife retired too. They were both workers, and they moved to Arkansas around closer to their neighbors, kinfolks. So we ended up down here, and we thought, well, we'll let that boy have our place because that time in life, getting old enough, we should slow down a little. And besides, we could have the part of the alley turned into a garden, which we did. That we would have maybe plenty of work. Okay, I didn't tell you about all the two collies my husband had trained in the going to obedience school and all, and then going to a lot of meetings over the period of time, all that, while we were down there in this other place. And all the bees, like 30 beehives, and honey, and some of our experiences in that. Okay.
If you want to, you can add those to the transcript.
Do what?
We'll send you a copy, and you can add some of those stories to it if you want.
Well, anyway, so we ended up here, and then in 2000, my husband passed away, and I'm still here. I've had a lot of, especially two good neighbors after moving in here. I knew them before I moved in here, so I knew that we'd still have those. Okay, those two women, during years, my husband thought they were a lot of fun to be with. He enjoyed them as well as I did. Going to Oscar Rose to the senior programs over there for years and classes and things, which was important. And we got with a travel club that we really enjoyed, and went a lot of places over Oklahoma and some places out of state and over some of the parks. And then we went to England for a week. Flew over there and all, and I thought, Farrell and I have done more than we ever dreamed as kids we'd do, and I think, we've been well travelers, and even going overseas. We did down to. We had a Caribbean cruise down off Florida. And I thought, we should be happy. We're still having the little Oklahoma tours. Before we got with a travel group, we would just go ourselves, short trips. Well, I guess that's all.
You had a very good life.
Yep.
I have. I sure have.
Well, thank you for sharing it with us.
Well, thank you for having patience.